Yeah, maybe we'll get started.
Okay. Um, hey, let me share my screen. Okay. Is this visible?
Yes.
Okay. Let's start then. Uh, yeah, hello everyone. My name is Pavitra Kodmad, and welcome to React Meetup. I thought Kiran will have some introduction ready for this.
Yeah. this
uh, yeah,
this
I don't
all.
know how online meetups go actually.
Yeah,
How they start and how they yeah switch and stuff. Um, this is my second one, I think. Yeah, so welcome to the meetup. Mine is the first talk of today. Um, Whoever's watching, it's awesome to be here. I didn't think I'd be coming to a React Bangalore meetup this year, but we have these circumstances. I hope you're all taking care of yourselves. Yeah, so my name is Pavitra Kodmad, and I am a front-end developer. I work at a company called Atlassian on a product called Jira. I've been here for around 3 years. I live in Sydney, Australia. I am working on a YouTube channel. So yeah, like, share, subscribe. Uh, yeah, and that's my Twitter handle. If anyone was looking for my updates on what I'm working on. So today, okay, does this work? Yeah. So today, my talk is going to be about web performance. Web performance is a niche for web developers. I'm going to be talking about it mostly from the viewpoint of a front-end developer. It's not a React specific talk. It's not even JavaScript specific. It's related to the topic of web performance, and it's a guide. It's a beginner's guide. So I'll start from the very basics of web performance. One thing that I won't be covering in this talk is why web performance is important. I think in 2020, we are all in agreement that web performance uh, really makes or breaks a website or web app. People expect fast web applications. Slow ones they have increased bounce rates. Slow e-commerce websites lose revenue, uh, don't get their conversions. And all of this is known, like rage clicking is very common. It's part of the Urban Dictionary. So I guess by now we all do know that web performance is really important. So I'll just skip that part. I won't show you any like resources regarding that. Uh, Instead, my agenda for today is going to be all about why web performance is so hard. Why, even though we know that it's really important, we see more slow websites than fast websites. By default, we build slow websites. Uh, what do you measure to determine the performance of your application? uh, what tools and techniques kind of that I recommend or have used and or are industry standard. I'll talk a little bit about that. And in that section, I'll talk about what APIs you can use to have custom metrics, and I'll just touch upon some monitoring stuff, not too much. Um, yeah, so let's begin this then. So why is web performance so hard? Like, what makes, I think in my career at least, this has been the most unpredictable thing that I have worked on. It never turns out to be like as I expect. It always works differently on people's computers than it does on mine. Uh, I attribute this to like these three factors basically, that all the tools that are available for to measure web performance work after you have made the code change, right? After you've made the code change, and possibly after your customers see these new features or new code changes, is when you will truly realize that you have degraded performance or even increased performance. So this is bad. Like there's no tool that tells you before you merge your code that hey, you're going to slow down the website. So it's very late in the life cycle for you to revert the whole feature. Instead, you will just be left diagnosing like why something would have happened. So I feel that's kind of something that makes it really hard to have good web performance all the time and on websites. And also the next one is that there are many diverse factors that determine user experience. It can be like somebody is using an older computer, somebody is using a different browser, uh, or they have, maybe somebody has at some point of time a lot of Chrome tabs open. It's eating their memory, and that's why there's not much memory to run your website. It can be very diverse, like all the factors that determine good web performance for the user. And so on your corporate network with your laptop or computer, things may be working okay, but that's not what somebody else will see. So it's hard to test for all these cases, even after or before you commit the code. And just plain entropy is because the more features and more code that you write for your web app, the performance is not going to improve by default. It'll always degrade by default. Uh, it will trend towards getting slower than trend towards getting faster. At least that's been my experience. So unless you're on the lookout, performance will degrade. So that's why I feel that it's really hard. And like talks like mine exist, and I am able to, like, we all have to share our experience on how we have been able to improve it. So my kind of mantra for it would be that you measure performance, you need to monitor performance, and you need to cultivate a culture where everyone is measuring and monitoring. So only that kind of translates to fast websites in my experience. So about measuring. Why do we have to measure? If you have this question, at least I feel it's clear cut that it is a scientific and objective way of uh, of knowing something, right? You cannot improve something that you can't measure. So even if it is really bad, even if a user complains it's slow, if you don't have a metric that you can improve, so that gives you the feedback that your changes are making this website fast, then uh, that's not a way to work towards something. So you have to measure, but what do you measure, right? So to measure, Google usually tells us, people usually follow whatever Google puts out in this space. And the latest thing that they put out, I feel, is the most comprehensive kind of measuring guide to this. They call it Core Web Vitals. And I think it's a great like baseline to start thinking about what you want to measure on your website. Uh, this set of metrics, yeah, this is a subset of a huge, larger set of metrics that you can measure. But I think they'll touch upon the most important points of your uh, website's performance that you should be aware about. So I'll talk a little bit more about them. Beyond this, you can of course measure custom metrics. You can measure how long that drop down takes to open up, or how long a particular transition takes, or anything you want. So what are core web vitals? I thought I'd talk about them. They're really new. And I really like the concept behind them. I feel like something so comprehensive to explain what to measure did not exist before. It was there, bits and pieces, but this kind of brings everything together, and I like the direction that it's headed in. So Core Web Vitals focuses on three main aspects of web performance, on loading, on interactivity. Loading is like first load, on interactivity, and visual stability. So I like that there are three clear-cut focus towards performance. And each of these this metric has thresholds. Like there's a threshold in which your users are happy. There are threshold where up to where it's acceptable, and after that, beyond which it is really, your web performance is really bad. So that's an overview of the core vitals. It's based on, so if you go to this website and read all the stuff that they've put out on this, it's based on solid human computer interaction research, and it's why these, and there's good reasoning behind why these thresholds exist and why they have chosen this particular metric and all of that, which makes for an interesting read, and it'll convince you that maybe you should also start thinking along these direction. So I'll break this down for you in this talk later. Yeah, and also if you follow Adio's Money, he typically tweets all about uh, like he's in the team that's implementing all of this, I suppose, and they have like solid research that says that core web vital thresholds, if you're within that, your websites are doing better. So to break it down, let's talk about each of them and what behavior in your web app affects these numbers. So the largest contentful paint is a user-centric kind of metric that they put out as part of core web vitals. So it basically indicates to what will be the biggest piece of information on your website and how long does it take to load that biggest piece. So it's a good replacement for TTI that they are proposing, though I don't fully agree with it. But the point here, I think, is that TTI, you can lie on TTI, time to interactive. You can decide wherever you want that the page is interactive and send this metric. But largest contentful paint kind of forces you to focus on the biggest piece of information that you're displaying to a user. It may be media or it may be text. So it focuses on that. And I like that. Uh, yeah, I like that you have to wait until the biggest thing on your website waits until you declare that the user, it's useful to the user. Earlier, Google used to propose first byte, time to first byte, uh, which I felt was pretty useless because it's not useful for the user to look at the first byte, right? They have to wait until everything's rendered on the page and they are able to interact with it. So this is a good, this is a step in the right direction, and it gives you achievable threshold. So it's good if the largest piece of content on your page loads within 2.5 seconds, which is doable, right? Many websites can reach there, and it keeps your users happy. That's proven. And beyond 4 seconds, of course, the website is really, really slow. So what affects LCP? So LCP can be affected by a slow server response. So if the request that you send back to the server, it comes back really slow, then the largest piece, the data for the largest piece cannot be retrieved soon, and so it will affect the LCP. If your critical JavaScript is not optimized, if there's a lot of bulk in that code, if that bundle is too huge, that'll affect LCP. And inefficient rendering, if it takes a lot of renders to show things on your page, if there are unnecessary re-renders or large components are re-rendering, that's bad. That affects this metric. And large resources like images, videos, and things like that, of course, will affect it. So if you see that your LCP is really low, then it's time to dig down into these factors and determine which kind of slowness you're experiencing. The next one is first input delay. So I don't fully agree with this metrics, with this metric. But I feel it is useful to start thinking about interactivity on your web app. So it's not just the first load that's important. So once a user starts clicking on things and using your web app, it should be very interactive, and there should be a way to check that. So here they propose that you are able to click and the website interacts in 100 milliseconds. So once it's ready, once the largest content has loaded and user clicks on it, it should come back within 100 milliseconds for a good experience. Um, This accounts for SSR freezes, I feel, so that's a good point of this. But yeah, it's a good place to start thinking about interactive performance of your website. So what affects it? Third-party code that's still loading after everything else on your page has loaded, if that's blocking the thread, if your bundles again are really large, and if you are using server-side rendering and hydration doesn't happen, so everything's frozen, you click on things, nothing happens. This, I think, will measure all of that. The last one that they ask you to measure is cumulative layout shift. Again, I like that this refers to perceived performance, like how noisy the web page is to the user, right? So good one is, so you kind of measure this by how large of an element on the page shifted how far away. So there's a formula for that. There's a method in Web Vitals GitHub repo that you can use to do this. I myself have not tried this, but I'm going to start implementing this as we at work also start looking more at perceived performance. So what affects this is you shouldn't insert content above things, especially if you have already rendered a layout. Don't insert things in between after the show skeletons and things like that. Use CSS transforms, don't change widths and heights a lot, and don't change asset sizes, like don't images should not like change sizes while it's loading, while the page is loading. It should have fixed sizes. These things will determine the cumulative layout shift, and anything else that's noisy to the user will also contribute to this. So these metrics are all well and good. How will you measure them, right? So right now, the core web vitals are only available through a Chrome extension. I tried this out, and it's pretty nifty to see, open up any website and see what these vital numbers are. Many people suffer from bad cumulative layout shifts, and it shows bad LCP too, which is pretty cool. This will also transfer to Lighthouse. I think versions 8. I don't know, the next one at least. It's not there right now. I tried it on Canary and on Novel Chrome. But Lighthouse Audit is a good place. Lighthouse Audit currently also shows a lot of metrics, so it's a good place for people to start. And web page test. So Lighthouse Audit itself, it looks something like this. You open up your page, you go to it's a tab on Google Chrome that's integrated within every Chrome instance, and you run an audit on the page. You can check whether it's mobile or desktop, and you can also run other audits, but here performance one is relevant. And then it gives you a score, and then it shows you the breakdown of different of other metrics that also you can read about in Web Vitals. It also shows you how the page kind of loaded, when content started appearing. So that visual kind of helps seeing how many frames came up with nothing in them. And it gives you a set of reasons which you can act upon. I think it's a great place for people to begin auditing their websites. If you have a blog, if you have a marketing website and things like that, use Lighthouse Audit on them and try to improve that score as much as possible. Next is web page test. Web page test is a place where you go and you can choose which device, which location to run your test web page in. And here I'm running my blog. Um, yeah, it's decent at what it does. You have to kind of retry multiple times for it to work. But I think it gives valuable information. It also gives you a profile that you can open on your Chrome performance, this thing, tab, and kind of look at how it performed in these different conditions. Other stuff you can, yeah, you can try this out for your blog and stuff as the next step after Lighthouse Audit. So other stuff you can measure is uh, custom metrics. So now you can put things around, put timers around every pieces of code that you want to like measure the timing for users. And you can use user timing, resource timing, navigation timing APIs that will do this for you. So everything comes under window.performance object. So user timings API refers to mark, measure, and to get these entries. Marking, this is the code that you would typically write. So before you do a task, you have you can start a mark, you can have an end mark, and you can kind of this will be timestamps that it will return, and you can store them, and like you can see them in your console and see how things work. You can go here to see more about marks and how what other kinds are there. So to measure is to like see the difference between marks, and yeah, and send other details. Even you can send like a feature toggle that's controlling a feature, and see when it's toggled off what kind of measurements you get, and it's toggled on what kind of measurements you get. So this can be useful. Other API that I can quickly say that are useful are resource timing API. This gives you timings of all the resources that you loaded, maybe JavaScript files or APIs or things like that. And it just uh, the browser just records them for you. You don't have to do much, but just pull out the entries from here. Navigation gives you like when pages changes, when page transitions happen, it gives you numbers for that. You should read more about this and see if it is useful. Maybe it's not, maybe it is. You can use them accordingly. It's available. So if you are a much more serious website, you have customers, your B2B customers, and you are more serious about performance, then it's best to have it, and you work in a larger team, right? It's best to have a lab kind of setting. So if you do branch builds with Netlify or something like that, you can have any of these tools do the web page test or Lighthouse audit for every branch build that you make. That should give you like early indication of how your new features or new PRs are behaving in the wild. This is a great resource that Sean Wang has written. You can check that out. The last kind of thing, like this is like heavy performance monitoring stuff for large scale apps or the apps that are really slow, and you can't find out why they are slow, and they have tons of users, features, and a lot of complexity around them. I feel at this point you have to do real user monitoring. You have to know what are the range of experiences that your users are experiencing. So real user monitoring consists of using various set of tools for you to actually get all the measurements that I talked about before for all of your real users, anonymized data, and then aggregate them to see what is the general range of performance of your web app. So for somebody with a super fast computer, super fast network, what kind of numbers will they see for TTI or LCP? And a user on an old desktop with the IE browser or whatever, what they will see. So you will have to distribute the data and see when you use real user monitoring. So real user monitoring is called RUM, and it needs, I feel like, three characteristics. It's a system that you build, and it's not a beginner's concern. If you're doing real user monitoring, you probably need an observability team in your company who does this. At least that's what I have in my office. You should be able to query all the data that's collected. You should be able to slice and dice and have different data in them. You should be able to create some kind of trend visualization, like what was this number like last week? Have we improved it this week, and so on. And you should be able to add alerting also. So when something happens that breaks this barrier, breaks this threshold, your team gets alerted so that they are so you can create a ticket and then follow it up and see why this happened and investigate why it happened. So if you're doing all of this, then you are basically a part of a performance culture. A performance culture you can define when you as a team on working on a product use both offensive and defensive approaches to make your web performance better and maintain it to be good. So offensive approaches can include things like profiling your app as part of a PR merge or something like that with your teammates. When you're before approving the PR, you both profile your application, see if something's wrong. Uh, Shameless plug is I made a video on this. I couldn't find any other resources, so I made one where I explain how to profile your application using Google Chrome Profiler. It's it's pretty detailed, that gives you a lot of information and tells you how the new stuff that you wrote performs. You can get some idea of how things are. When you write app code, you look at memoizing sensitive part of the sections. You make up API calls really early. You see how many times re-render happens. You're using your React profiler or something like that. And you're always fine-tuning the critical path. You're deferring stuff that doesn't need to happen immediately. And you're trying to give your user the best experience. By defensive techniques, I mean that you have to have a culture where you talk about performance. And if an alert happens, if some kind of regression happens, say for your page was loading under 4 seconds and now it's 4.5 seconds, you have to follow up and see what changes made this happen, and try to effectively bring it down. One example of this on my team, at least, we have a technical operations kind of meeting every week, no, every 2 weeks, and we talk about performance. We talk about why the number is at where it is, whether it's reducing, whether it's increasing, and so on. Even if you're a one-person team, you can like take apart some time and think about performance. Is on a lower scale is also enough to build a performance culture within yourself. I have not seen any app working fast without adopting any of these techniques. Even when you adopt these techniques, it's still quite hard as your team size increases and things like that. So I have seen good results only when you have a good performance culture. So I feel it's worth it, uh, worth doing. And yeah, that's a takeaway from this talk for you, that if you want to have good web performance, then you have to care a lot about it, and that'll make it worth it. So yeah, that's my talk for today. Thanks for listening. I just went on with my talk, and I don't know if people have been hearing it or not. So I'm open to any questions if that works here. Yeah, that's all I had to say about web performance for beginners. I hope that was useful to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Pavitra. It's really informative. I think we'll have some time for questions. Uh,
Okay.
so people who are on Zoom, if you want to ask some questions, you can unmute and ask questions. People who are on YouTube stream, you can type the questions so that I can relay that question to Pavitra.
Ooh.
Yeah, good evening, ma'am.
Hey,
Hello.
hello.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
evening, ma'am. Yeah, the session was really interactive. I work as a web developer in a startup. So I had a query that I was the things you told that was exactly correct. That whatever measures I take, it doesn't work out perfectly or anything. But you told how to measure the metrics. Okay, but how to optimize these things? Could you give a little bit feedback how to get the solution to increase the performance? We are aware about these things, that how to measure and all these things, but how to get the optimum solution to get the performance increase, that's the thing I want to know.
So the why I didn't speak much about that, because it is very custom to your application. You have written that application code from start to beginning. You have made various choices, right? Maybe you are using Webpack, maybe you are using Parcel, maybe you are using React, maybe you're using Vue. Maybe for you, your web application consists of large tables that need to be scrolled, or showing large lists, or maybe somebody's is more interactive heavy, maybe they have charts more. So I feel that web applications vary so much in form and function, and the technologies tech stack that they're built on. Even the backend matters, right? Like that your server response also should be optimized for this. For me, I work on a single page application that's built in React. We use Webpack for bundling it, and we use microservices to make our API calls. So in this setup, at least, I have found that for performance optimizations that we have been working on, is to like, first step at least is to fine tune your critical path really well. Like what is it's very it would be good if you knew what exactly is the code path that takes the user to show a useful page, to see a useful page. What is that code path? Defining that code path is, I think, the hardest thing. And it's also like, as new people add code to it, if they have to know whether they're affecting that critical path or not. And there is no tool that tells you that this piece of code is on the critical path. So it's up to you to know your application so deeply and know that path for this thing. So for us, it is usually like there is SSR that comes in, then there is the SPA shell that loads up, and then there is API calls that need to be made to show that particular route, and then the route rendering of the route itself. So we are trying to optimize on these three pillars. We are trying to make our SSR faster. We are trying to stream the HTML onto the page as soon as possible. And we are trying to even like add a small script tag at the top, which will make all the API calls as early as possible, so that as soon as the uh, JavaScript has evaluated, the data is present for you to render, because we felt that was also a bottleneck. And we are next trying to, so there is also like, when you load JavaScript onto your page, even if it's asynchronously loaded, you have to determine the order. If you read the new blog post by Facebook on how they optimized for Facebook, they have this import mechanism where what they do is they have different categories of imports, like what import is required for the critical path and what import can be done after the TTI is sent. So that kind of, that's really new stuff. That's something also we are also working on. If you go to Atlassian Labs, you will see a library, but it's not ready yet. We also have an internal tool where we have started to measure the number of re-renders that happen on every. You can get that information from the profiler, but profiler tends to be like too slow and too big. So our tool kind of pulls that out and gives out components with the most number of re-renders in sorted form. So we've been going through those and trying to optimize. So yeah, it's been like attacking it from many fronts. And it's also important to be defensive, because so now we have a system where when you toggle a feature flag, we run the lab condition tests on it on a 50% of that feature flag. Yeah, and that has also like surfaced a lot of issues before it goes to production. So it's been easy. So you can just contact that team and tell. But again, you have to like police also. So because otherwise the performance tends to go down only, is what I've experienced. So doing all of these things is a lot of effort, and you have to put priority to that also, right? I mean, there's feature development and then there is focusing on performance. So yeah, it's depending on how important it is to you and how well you know your code base. Yeah, the more marks you put and the more you measure, it's better. So right now we have a measure for every point, like when does the SPA finish, when does the rendering start, when does the API call start, when does that come back. So we have that breakdown. So whenever we make any code changes, which part of that breakdown changes is a good place to know. So I've just like, this is not industry standard. This is what has worked for us right now. So maybe that will help you.
Okay. Fine.
Pavitra, we have one couple of questions on YouTube stream. So one question is, how to reduce the impact of third-party scripts, like Google Analytics or Google Tag Manager, something like that. How do we reduce the impact of third-party scripts? That's the question.
So this
Mani
is
asked.
something. Yeah. I think like not put that script tag before all of the things. I guess I don't. We if I need any third party scripts, we have a way of like deferring them after. So yeah, in that context of a small page or a blog page or marketing page where you just add Google Analytics on the top, maybe use JavaScript. Yeah, I don't have a proper solution for that, unfortunately. Maybe like you could Google and find out, I guess.
Yeah.
Or I'll let you know. once I find out. It's not been a concern of mine usually, and so that's what somebody tweeted at me, that third party, their Twitter logo on that. So the Twitter like and share button that she had included kind of was slowing down her website or showing bad numbers on Lighthouse. And then she said she corrected it. So I tweeted back at her asking what she did to correct it, but she never got back to me. Yeah, I'm also curious to know how to do this. Maybe because of this question, I'll try to find out.
Yeah. So one more question Chirag Verma is asking is how to automate the performance checks from multiple locations.
So this is what, okay, so this depends on the scale that you're operating at, right? If you just want web page tests to run, apparently you can do that. I showed you a slide with all the different tools. I think there are paid tools also in that list that'll let you, if you provide them with that, with the URL where your app is deployed, they will hit it from different locations, giving you the same numbers like web page test and Lighthouse. Yeah, I'll publish my slides today, and
Yes, yes.
you can find the link in that.
Yes, yes, yeah. So anyone else have questions? Maybe who are on the Zoom?
Hello.
Hey.
Yeah. Hi.
Did somebody speak?
Yeah. So yeah, myself, Harpreet. I just want to understand, like, do we have any sort of tool that we can integrate with the CI/CD process so that we can get an alert on like LCP values and all?
Yeah, this is what, right? This is what I said in the beginning, that it is hard to do. So see, you would have to build the branch there and then hit it with all of these. No, we have not been able to get it into a CI/CD process like before you merge stuff. So what right now the process we have is after you merge, then we run checks on this code base, and we run them on all the locations where we deploy, on machines reserved in all the locations where we deploy. So we get data from all the locations. So we just have to like soak it for a half a day or something, and it tells us. So it's before it goes on to production. So yeah, we get that little early hint on whether it's affected things or not. If there is a tool that will help you do it before you can merge your code, then things would be really easy, right? I would write a test and then I would just see whether like I improved or decreased performance or not.
So it's a kind of A/B testing kind of we are doing right now.
Yeah, that's what at least we are following right now.
So New Relic tool has that, I think so, but there's a paid one. So I haven't had a chance to like look into it, but I have thought of
that's what it's.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So if it depends on what scale you're operating. If it's that important to you, you will have to like get New Relic as a company and then use that to dice and slice this data.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
So we have one more question here. So someone is asking on the YouTube stream, like we generally have these bundle size checks, right? I think Siddharth also wrote one script, one tool for that. The person is asking like they have a big team and they set a limit, but when multiple teams are working, they are crossing the limit frequently. So how do we manage this, you know?
So we kind of have now. So bundle size, of course, it'll keep increasing. So we do encourage like people to make async bundles as where and when possible. So we have a bundle size check based on Webpack gives you bundle size information on every build, right? So what we do right now is every time a master build runs, the main build runs, it kind of stores the current bundle sizes. Then we have a list of all the so we have this default delta of bundle sizes increase that's acceptable. And then a kind of bash script runs after every build on a branch where it compares the bundle sizes on the branch to the bundle sizes on master and shows you this difference. And if the difference is higher than this delta, then it fails the build for us right now. So that's how we are keeping a check on bundle size. So then if you have to pass the build, you have to increase this delta manually. And so the stakeholders can like look at why this is happening more detailedly. So at least that's what we are following. It kind of works, but people, yeah, there were no good tools like to get into the bundle size and see which part of the bundle has increased. And this may not the bundle size increase may not be because of your change also, right? Like you might have just imported, or you might have updated some package, and it kind of Webpack distributes them weirdly based on what kind of configuration you give it if you're using Webpack. So yeah, bundle size is a tricky thing. It does trend to go up all the time. We try to police it as much as possible. Um, yeah, it's again like you have to spend the time to investigate why the bundle size is increased. Is it valid for your change? Is it acceptable? You have discussed with your teammates and then push it in. If you have that culture, well and good. Yeah.
Yeah.
The tools exist though for bundle size measuring before you merge your code.
Yeah. I think one more question is, for beginners or students, if they want to start thinking in terms of web performance, where can they, I mean, what is the good starting point for them?
So yeah, so for beginners, you can start looking at how websites are performing by just opening Lighthouse on Google Chrome. Just see the values. If you have a personal website, just try to make it as performant as you can. Also, you can read through the Web Vitals link that I'll post in my slide. It has really good information, and like there's a lot of links to like research and papers that people have done, investigating how users respond to performance and what kind of things are should be measured or you have to keep in mind and things. So that'll give you like good direction to think in, I think, if you're looking for a resource to read and understand. And yeah, I make videos on web performance, so you can look at that. I'll make more. And you can also look at Google developer videos. The Google channel has a lot of videos, and it has a whole section on performance, which is also good. And anything that Adi Osmani puts out, all those things you can read. Uh, yeah, just follow Adi Osmani on Twitter. He puts up a lot of performance resources from time to time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's all the questions we have.
Cool. Yeah, we also use Webpack Bundle Analyzer, but again, it has difficulty. I'll just like, there was a comment on YouTube
Okay.
that has a little bit difficulty in like comparing between main branch and the developer branch. So that's why we had to build our own thing for that. Cool. Thanks for this, Kiran.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah,
really
thanks,
cool
Pavitra.
experience.
Like really informative session. And thanks for answering all the questions. Yeah, hi everyone. So we will share the links and links to the videos and slides maybe via Twitter and Meetup page. Yeah, then Saurabh.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
I'll just share screen.
Yes.
Is this visible?
Yes.
So, wouldn't that be cool if we could just write loops over HTML and just put conditions? So this is how we build our applications today, right? We have simple applications that we build in HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and then we have complex applications where we go for frameworks. So yeah, we have these 4 frameworks. Then we have things like Next, for static sites, we have Sapper. This how we've been building our applications, but do we have something for not so complex, not so simple applications like blogs, portfolios, etc.? We actually do. These are the things that we have. We have Hexon, Sapper, Gatsby has been great. Jekyll, the good old boy, Hugo. Then Leventi supports like almost every template, so it's good as well. Vue Press next. So we do have these things, but so I wanted to build a blog and I just went through them and I found one issue in common. So they make it really easy to create blogs, but the point you have to change the behavior, the default behavior that they provide. So if you want to change a layout, it gets really complicated unless you know the framework that they're using. So there's this extra step to learn to understand the code. So if you're using Gatsby and you have to change the layout and everything and understand how it is working, then you have to understand React as well. If we have Hugo, then Go, Jekyll is built over Ruby. So we have this extra step. But if we see over here, this is if we are going from simple applications to not so complex to complex, then the process should be gradual as well. The learning process should be gradual as well. But currently it is HTML, CSS, JavaScript, then React, and coming back to Gatsby. So instead of this, we need something like this: HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and then you can just jump onto creating your blog and portfolios. We don't have any particular tool for this. So um, I tried creating one. This is what I'm going to talk about, building up a new static site generator. Um, my introduction, I'm Saurabh. I love open source. I'm in my final year and I keep building random things. I think text-to-end writing is the most popular one. So let's go. Okay, yeah. Before the talk, it is at 0.3.0. The Abell is at 0.3.0, so it is not ready for using it in production. The only goal of giving this talk was to just get some ideas from the community, because until here I was just building something that I want to use, but I just want some ideas like what you guys would like to use, what you guys would like to change, because once we get to 1.2.2, we can't really change much. So let's see. Um, so yeah, what is static site generator? It is a script that applies static data or content to the template and outputs a static website. So your website is built when you do npm run build, rather than if you compare it with React. React sends a app.js, let's say, and index.html, and then app.js renders the elements that are needed over there. So static site generators build index.html directly because they use static data content. So that data is never going to change anyway. So you don't need state management at all. So this is like the basic top view of how they work. You read Markdown, you read JSON, apply it into template. By template, I mean it is something that browsers don't understand. So you need to compile it into HTML. So template engine turns a template into HTML. So if I have a content with index.md, which has some blog, which is your blog, and then data, let's say it has meta content of your blog, and then index, which is a layout for your blog. .doggo is just a random template name. It is not. I don't know if it exists or not. So when you npm run build, it will just generate the index.html. So they're comparatively fast unless you're looping over million like data or something. But if you're looping over a million data or something, then probably the data is the problem. So first thing that when you're building a static site generator, you need is to find a template engine. You need something that renders your template into HTML. So this was the idea. I had this in my mind. So this is very close to what we write in JavaScript. So um, you don't have to learn any extra thing. We are just writing a JavaScript inside curly brackets. But this was just idea. So I tried to find some template engines that I tried to find something that looks like this, but so this is what Jekyll uses. It is Ruby. We have Hugo, which is Go. Hexo is surprisingly JavaScript, but it doesn't look like JavaScript. It uses EJS templates. So like this particular thing, underscore recent post. So this just seems like a magic. So the one goal was to just not make it look like magic, make things logical, and it should be understandable for beginners. I came across this mustache to check them out the GitHub for initial like for getting started, I did use Abell. I did use this in Abell. So this is how you loop over things in Mustache. You have hashtag variable name slash variable name, and you can just loop over HTML and it will print all the content. But the problem is when you have to filter over them or when you have to sort them, things get really tricky in stats. So I just couldn't find any that satisfies my needs. So I started building one template engine as well. So Abell renderer, this is the repository that handles, this is the template engine that turns .abel files into .html. It is a zero dependency template engine that lets you write variables, loops, and conditions in HTML using JavaScript syntax, which basically means if I go back, this is a valid .abel file today. This is exactly what you write in Abell. You just write JavaScript inside the HTML with curly brackets, and all this JavaScript is rendered on the build time. So if we go to this, yeah, this is hello world. So you have const greet is equal to string hello world, and if you see greet dot to uppercase, so it is using the JavaScript function, and hello world is printed in uppercase. If we have site.json, let's say I have this information of projects. So this is my title and the name of project, description of project, name of project, description of project. So if you're building a portfolio site where you don't want to change the HTML again and again every time you make a new project, so you can just change the JSON. Uh, in Abell, you can require it the way you would in Node.js. So you can require site.json, and I can just say site data.title, site data.projects, and map over them. And join is to just remove the comma, otherwise it will print a comma for arrays. And you will get this rendered. So this is what we actually deploy. So it does not need any extra rendering. Um, so abelljs.org, this has all the documentation. So I'm just going to talk about the documentation now. Let's go to documentation. If you're impatient like me, you can just copy paste this into a terminal and you'll get a blog running. Uh, let's just actually go through them. Go through all of this. So getting started. This is the same thing that was there in the homepage. Then we have template. There's just one template right now. In preview, you can just check the template. So this is the minimal template that you get. We have hello world. Oh, it's taking longer than it usually takes. Okay, so yeah, we have a hello world blog. So you have syntax highlighting. This is all coming from a template. So I can just turn it to a dark mode. Now let's say I want to use this as a starter template. I can just do deploy with Netlify. Yeah, you just have to connect it to GitHub. I'm already logged in, so it just got connected. And I'll just say Reactify example, save and deploy. And that's it. That's pretty much all you have to do. And you'll get a blog deployed, and you'll get a copy on your GitHub and it'll be deployed on Netlify. So it'll take some time. It should be done by the time I drink water. Okay, done. Let's see GitHub till then. Reactify example. Yeah, it is deployed. So this is now being hosted from your repository. So this is my GitHub. It just created a repository in your GitHub. You can see all the code. Content has the markdown. So if I just go to this hello world, the markdown is coming from here. I'll just change the things directly. Usually you would want to clone it and then change things, but I'll just change it directly here. Um, and commit changes, and it should change here as well. It'll take some time. And we have Reactify. Um, I'll just clone it so that we can um, just navigate through files properly. And you have to npm stop. Why didn't it show up? Oops, I installed it into different folder, I guess. It's /reactify. Oops, it's here. Yeah, let's just go with this. So we have node modules now. I can run npm run dev. It comes with dev server, live dev server, so you can just hot reload things. I'll go into hello world. And the dev server is written from scratch, so it is pretty fast. Closed. So we're in hello world. Um, then I can just make changes here and they'll be reflected in the log. So it's just changes really fast. Mm, yeah, hello. Now every block has a meta.json which you can use to define any variable. So you can this is the default one, title and description. This is what I use in the template to render things. So and there's a assets folder. Assets is relatively copied into your eventual disk. So the paths are relative. You can just do assets and doggo.gf and it will load that .gf. There's this debug folder that is created when you're on dev server, where you can just navigate through files which are built. So if I go to hello world, I have this assets folder, and this is the built HTML. So this is what it becomes after building. I haven't minified it, so it's pretty understandable even at this point. So you have meta.json where you can define any variables. Now, one major goal was to make things easy to edit, right? So if I go to theme, index.abell, this is just your HTML. This is how your HTML would look like. I have content.array, which is a default variable. Everything that starts with a dollar is indefined variable. So it has all the information that you may require to build a block. So content array has all the meta informations of all the blocks. So you can just loop over this thing. I'll print content array. You can console log it into template. I hope this works. I haven't tried this yet. Did it? Oh yeah, I did. So yeah, this is the content that I have title, description, and if you see this $slug, $modified at, $created at, these are the new functions that were added. So if we have to just go to that block, you can do $path. You have title created at is a date object. By default, it will set created at to the date of creation of that folder. or you can just overwrite it from a meta.json. So we have description. So overall looping through is very far. This code is very familiar. If I go to this is the index page. So this is the page where I'm showing all the list of blocks. Then we have a block page, a block template. So you just have to write single template and you reuse it all over the blocks. If you see this dot import content, you can import anything from content folder. It is related to content folder. So I can just say $path will give me this path. This will dynamically change the path. So you can loop over the content path as well, and you'll get index.md, and import content will just import the markdown and will turn it into HTML. So yeah, we have this plus one then Abell.config where you can define global meta. So there are two things. I'll just go back to documentations. We don't need this. So yeah, documentations. These are syntax guide, editing content, meta variables guide. Meta variables are this. So the one you've seen, global meta, they are accessible from any .abl file in the directory. And then you have meta.json, which are specific to the particular block. So let's see. Oh, damn, why is it not doing? It doesn't take that long. Okay, so it's just demos. So God of demos are not well right now. So we have global meta. We define them in the abell.config.js. You can say any variable equals to any value, and you can just do global meta.site title inside any of the Abell files. Then you have meta.json that we saw in the content block. This meta.json is specific to the particular block. So I can just do OG image over here. I can put title, and um, then I can just have in $path indexable, I can say a global meta.site title, which is coming from global meta, and then meta.title, which will change for every block. So it'll render two blocks. I'll have my cool blog and another blog with different covers and different titles. Then you have some predefined variables, like I said, created at, modified at, path, root, and then content array, and the import content function. We have covered this pretty much. Then we have plugins. I haven't built in much of the plugins yet. It's Abell is not stable yet, so I won't really like. You can build plugins, but you'll have to update it if Abell is updated. There's a plugin to create sitemap.xml. Oh, by the way, blog, this documentation site is built over Abell as well, and I am using this plugin in this. So I can just say, I guess, sitemap. Sitemap.xml, and this is you don't really have to do much, and it builds the sitemap. So if this is on my personal account. You can npm install saved Abell sitemap plugin, and then you can set domain. Domain is the one that you want your search engines to see, and then you just pass the name to a plugins array in abell.config.js, and that's it. That it will just build sitemap every time you build a blog. Um, Now, another thing that I was really targeting was to have minimal code possible. So have minimal setup. So if you have just one, it shouldn't be limited only to the people who want to write blogs. So just markdown based was not working. So I'll go to a different file. Let me fix the part. It will fix the part, right? Okay, it isn't right part. So if you're starting a project from scratch, I can just create a theme folder and have index.abell inside this. and that's all the setup you need. I'll just write. Um, by the way, Abell, .abel has a VS Code extension to highlight your code. You'll find it in the marketplace. You'll probably get notified after installing Abell that there's an extension available for .abel files. Let's just say body A plus B. So I can do maths and body. Um, I'll just run it from npx. It should actually be installing it, but anyway, I'll build this. You use build to build a website. So if you are hosting over any of the hosting platform and it asks you for command, it should be a build build. And this is 8. So this is the minimal setup you need. If you want to change if you don't like the theme folder, like theme is very specific to the content based, like the static site generators. But if you want something different, probably SRC, you can module.export source path SRC. And it should you can just change the folder name to SRC and it will work the same way. So anyway, you get the point, right? It's lagging now. So we're done with the demo. We'll just move to what are the next plans. I'll just close this. So currently the components are just JavaScript files that return HTML string or return CSS strings. It gets horrible when you want like a JavaScript file or something. So in that case, you have to return a JavaScript string from inside like JavaScript, which is like JS and JS. People are already complaining about CSS and JS, so that would be terrible idea to have a JS and JS. So we need something to build components. So that is the one plan. Then we want something to um, like we want to support internationalization out of the box. So that is another plan. So you could just write index.md, that would be English. Then you can just do index underscore hi.md, so it will be Hindi, and it will build separate websites depending on the depending on the languages. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I guess that was the only slide I had in there, documentation. So yeah. Um, you can check out abelljs.org. It has all the links, uh, and in the footer you can find other links as well. So there's a link for Abel renderer and the starter template. And yeah, that's it. So just stop sharing.
Nice talk, Saurabh.
Yeah, thank you. If you have any questions, you can ask.
So if anyone has questions, you can ask. So we have one question on YouTube. It is like, what's the main motivation behind building this tool?
So the motivation is the current template engines, they just have lots of extra things to learn, like the way you look, the way you use conditions. This is so much extra to learn. So the main motive was to just have minimal things to learn. In Abel, you can just write your usual JavaScript. So even if you want to filter or something or sort something, you can use your usual JavaScript functions. And yeah, that was the main motive, just to have easier code which you can jump to after learning HTML, CSS, JavaScript.
Great. Yeah. One more question is how can we contribute to this project? Harshna is
So yeah, that would be great because that was actually one of the main motivations because we need some contributions. Abell.js.org has the documentation, and in the footer you'll find all the links to repositories that it is dependent on. So we have Abell, which is actually a static site generator, which handles all the markdown to HTML conversion, and then the folders and the passes this extra variables that we talked about. And then we have Abell renderer, which just takes the .abell file and converts it into HTML. So we have these two main repositories, and even the Abell's documentation website is there. If you want to just contribute to documentation, that would be great as well. So you'll find links on abelljs.org.
yeah. One more question is why should we choose Abel over Gatsby?
So if you know React well, then it is fine to use Gatsby. Gatsby is doing amazing. There are lots of plugins already. So if you know React, then it's fine to go for Gatsby. But like the whole meeting was to just, if you are going from HTML, CSS, JS to then to something static set generator, which should be a lot easier. Then in that case, Abel works. And plus, if you just want a simple thing, let's say you're building an internal tool for your work, or let's say a particular a blog application, a blog or something small, a single page projects portfolio. In that case, you would not need 90% of the features that Gatsby provides. So in that case, you can just go for Abel, which is simpler and very limited to a particular functionality.
Great. Yeah, that's all the questions we have.
Cool. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kiran, for giving this chance. And if you want to contribute, that would be great. And if you have any ideas, you can put them out as well. You can create issues or just reach out to me on Twitter. I'm Saurabh Coates on Twitter and Saurabh Davare everywhere else.
Great. All the best for your project.
Yeah, thank you, Kiran.
Thanks. So next we will have Anisha.
Yeah, hi Kevin.
Hi. I think we are having echo one.
Uh, Hello, is it fine now? Okay. Kiran, are you there?
Can you share your screen?
Yeah. The audio is fine now, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, let me give a second to share this. Okay. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Anisha, and I'm a part of Red Hat's performance and scale engineering team since a year. And I work at Bangalore, India. And I work on designing and developing a dashboard for performance benchmarking and visualization. And I work on React PatternFly for the same. So today I want to share my experience of working at React, which is a very powerful library, and PatternFly, which is an emerging design system. And together, I feel they are quite capable of being the answer to the new age web designing. Again, this isn't a topic which is quite related to React technology, but more about implementing a design system with React framework for better user interface. So let me just close the video so that we don't have any interference with audio. Okay. So Let's talk about today's agenda. Today's agenda consists of an overview of the objectives and workflow of PatternFly, what makes PatternFly unique, and how we can integrate with React and a couple of other frameworks so swiftly, and create customized components and layouts. I'll also provide you with the resources to get started with the development and contributions for Patternfly at the end, so stay tuned. Now, when we talk about user interface designing, with each passing day, we are inching towards even better technologies and products. And this is a great time for tech startups to make their mark. In the era of AI and machine learning, where everyone is crazy about making their products stand out, there is a small part, or I would say a very important part, which played by user interface design. It has a significant role. A good user interface is important because it can turn potential visitors to buyers, as it facilitates interactions between the users and your website or web application. Now, to cope up with that need, various front-end frameworks are created for developing complex user interfaces, and Patternfly is one of them. Now, the whole objective of Patternfly is to build a better user experience for customers while providing the developer with the features of usability, customization, and scalability in an open source way. So, what is Patternfly? Patternfly is an open source interface design system by Red Hat, which provides various visual components, tools, and designing tools to design visual components and code examples to make it possible for almost everyone to design and build responsive, accessible user experience. Patternfly is created to enable consistency and usability across a wide range of applications and use cases. It provides clear standards, guidance, and tools that help both designers and developers work together more efficiently and, I guess, build better user experiences. Now the question is, why Patternfly? Because most of us know, like, there are a bunch of other frameworks that and design systems that are available nowadays. So, I want a couple of minutes to take to go through why Patternfly. So, Patternfly is a project which connects the developer and designer in a single platform to collaborate, create, and share their designs for components or widgets. Being based on Bootstrap free, it uses a mobile first approach for creating websites and applications, which makes it more responsive. Patternfly helps save a lot of time and energy by providing demo examples and layouts with the code to implement those solutions as well. Now, how is Patternfly built? Patternfly is based on Bootstrap and built using less extends the CSS language, allowing variable mix-ins, functions, etc., which makes it quite maintainable, themable, and extendable. Now, as I said, what's the difference? Still, what's the difference between usual framework and Patternfly? A lot of people will say that there are multiple frameworks available already. So, what's the difference? So, Patternfly extends the features and the functionality of Bootstrap, but just mark the word extends. It offers a bunch of additional components with custom look and modern touch for clean design. All components pose behavioral consistency, which I absolutely love, which lets developer reuse the components even in a disparate project, and makes them look like they belong to the same portfolio. What I exactly mean is, Patternfly uses some global variables for theming, and it can be altered very easily in any other project while still maintaining the design consistency. We'll talk about more about global variables in for the slides. So it is quite capable of providing a symmetrical but yet unique vibe for every project. And most importantly, it's built in an open source way, so everyone is free to either create, debug an issue, or enhance the feature of PatternFly. So that's my favorite feature, I guess. Now, let's talk more about it. With Patternfly, we can design as well as develop the visual components. So Patternfly provides a design kit, which helps the designers to create hi-fi mockups of Patternfly components and layouts. So basically, it looks very much alike the implementation. The mockups are pretty much alike that. So it is easier to implement it exact same way. The design kit is a collection of design assets that make it easy for designers to create hi-fi mockups. That these mockups accurately match Butterfly components, and it works with Sketch library, I guess, Sketch version 47 or something, yeah. And this facility helps to create better sync between mockups of wireframes or and actual design. So I personally I feel a little trouble here when the designer provides with a wireframe or mockup of a component, and the component implementation of the framework doesn't match at all. So it's a kind of a issue because we don't know if we can customize the framework component with the mockups. So Patternfly, I guess, very efficiently solves that issue. To use it, we need to install Sketch version 47 or above. For users who do not have access to Sketch, they can use a free design tool called Figma as well. So yeah, so Patternfly provides font and symbol libraries and the downloadable Patternfly template file on Sketch Cloud to make the process even easier. So now coming back to development aspect of it, which I work the most. Patternfly comes in three types of components. It's React, HTML, CSS, or Angular components. Now, HTML, CSS are core components, which comes in a pure form. By that I mean the HTML, CSS design without JavaScript interactions. So if we need to write our own jQuery or JavaScript in order to get the interactivity. So while React comes with a full-fledged functionality and interaction, same goes for Angular. But I believe options for components and layouts and elements in React is more wider than Angular. So uh, that's it. And about in Patternfly components are also available in Vue too, but it's a third-party library which can be used to integrate Patternfly with Vue. So there are some specific steps to get the Patternfly configured in this frameworks as well. So before getting into the setup, it's always a good idea to get package managers like npm or yarn installed already. So why React and Patternfly? Now, as I said, Patternfly comes with a wide range of components of React, approximately 50 plus components and 7 layouts. Again, uh, that's the like wide range of options. Again, PF elements can be very easily customized with React state management. We can also avail a lot of flexibility of integrating the different React libraries with the Patternfly project. And last but not the least, Patternfly React comes with a bunch of charts for data visualization as well, and which is like a complete package at the same place. So we'll talk about more about charts and those later in the slides. Now, setting up Patternfly in an environment is pretty easy. We just have to follow a couple of steps. First is to download the CSS and JS files of Patternfly using npm or yarn. And you can also avail a starter project using React Patternfly components. It can be found in the Patternfly React seed repo. I have added the links in the slide, which should be shared later. Now, a couple of things more while setting up. There are 3 modules in Patternfly, that is layout, components, and utilities. Each of 3 modules deliver a SAS file and a CSS file, which are pretty much same. You can use any of them, which you can include in your environment in HTML or import in React. Now there will be a base.css file, which is the unified main CSS file. The patternfly.css file contains the base styles of the whole patternfly, and then we get individual components and layout files, CSS files according to the need. So we import only required components or layout file in the project, and to avail uh, all the styles, base styles, we have to include base.css and patternfly CSS in the CSS file. So more detailed view of installation process will be found in the resources, which I'll provide at the end of the slide. So feel free to go through them. Now, talking about patternfly features, it uses a bunch of predefined global variables to maintain consistency throughout the design, and at the same time gives the user privilege to modify the component without disturbing the consistency. For example, we can get a value of color white with a variable pf global palette like 100, or set a border width which is like 3 pixels, which is similar to setting border as pf global border with large. So what happens is, even if I am creating two components with a different border width or different any different parameter, still it will be consistent because all the values are set as a variable. So that's how patternfly maintains the consistency throughout all its components, and provides a flexibility. The variables are needed to get wrapped inside var, or can be written followed by a dollar symbol. So similar kind of global variables can be found for colors, to give space between the component, which they call spacers, font sizes, line height, and border width, and bunch of other parameters. uh, Patternfly uses Red Hat display font or Red Hat text font. We can modify the font size or spaces between text again by the global variables, and we can also import other fonts to use along with Patternfly. The icons of Patternfly are two-dimensional and flat. It can be imported from Patternfly React Icons library. We can also download the SVG and reuse the icons. I find a little glitch in that. Some in HTML I was not being able to integrate with React Icons, so I had to download SVG and integrate it. So otherwise, with React, to use font awesome, there are a couple of settings that we have to do in the CSS files, and it needs to import two different packages to Abell Font Awesome, that is Free Solid SVG, React Font Awesome, and Font Awesome SVG Core. Those are three packages, I guess. The links will be available in the article that I'll provide in the resources. Patternfly has a set of default colors for all of its components, like primary colors, typography, iconography colors, background colors, status, like state colors like active or inactive state colors. Using the same pattern of colors helps the component look alike and fit together. It also supports some parameters of adding shadow and contrast ratio. So basically, if I want to change the theme of the whole project, I just have to change a couple of variable values. So that's it. And similar to colors, Patternfly has default variables for the space, as already said. um, Between components with the value ranging from 4px to 64px, like say xs to 3xl. So that's about the features. uh, there are three types of elements present in Patternfly: components, layouts, and charts. I would say the most decorated components can be found in React. Um, about component, Patternfly website lists a wide range of visual components, like I said, more than 50 plus components, which comes with example codes for exact implementation. Just the CSS file of the components needs to be imported or linked with the main CSS file of the project. uh, then implementing interactivity to core components, because of the lack of interactivity, it is expected for the core HTML CSS components uh, to not having interactivity. So you'll have to include your own JavaScript if you are not using React components. So that's a drawback that we have here. For React and core HTML CSS, Patternfly provides 8 types of layouts to visualize data in responsive manner. For example, grid or which all grid almost works like bootstrap columns, but it has a gutter plus grid, and then the split level slack and a bunch of other layouts like gallery, like you can have videos and YouTube gallery. So can just customize all these layouts to work with each other as well. Then the charts. Patternfly provides a bunch of chart options in React and Angular, which makes it even more feasible for analysis, dashboard, and data visualization. In React, there are options of various charts, from area charts to display metric for continuous data to donut charts, represent relative amounts. Patternfly React charts are based on the Victory chart library with a lot of customization and theming. So that's the plus point of Patternfly, I feel. Now, just a quick demo of the Patternfly website, how it looks. So this is a basic dashboard layout of Patternfly, and yeah, this is like how it looks, but it is completely it can be completely customized. You can also find a couple of other demos over. Okay, wait. So there are a couple of other demos for like card view or complete page layout over here, and it comes with code as well. And these code are interactive in the website itself. So please feel free to play with those. So next thing is the analysis. Even though with a lot of flaws and plenty of scope of improvement, Patternfly indeed leaves a mark with its unique approach towards making users' experience better. From its impressive technique of maintaining consistency to its nature of giving freedom to design to developer, I feel it's like no, it's worth giving it a try. I feel Patternfly comes as a package with charts, layouts, and providing an opportunity for designers and developers to work in a parallel view. I think those are pretty much the pros uh, that that motivates us to use Patternfly. Then what I personally feel is Patternfly still needs a lot more components and even more flexibility to create a complete new component out of old ones, which I would like to see in Patternfly soon. And one more thing is Patternfly gives a lot of more of lines of codes. I have worked with Design and Bootstrap before, so but that's kind of inevitable because Patternfly gives a lot of opportunity to customize the code. So uh, the lines of codes are kind of bulky. And yeah, it also needs a lot of documentation, what I feel. When I started doing working with Patternfly, I couldn't find much of the documents, so I had to create one article for myself. I'll provide the link below. So that's where Patternfly lack as well, I feel. So that's about the analysis that I personally feel. Now, there is another very neat approach that Patternfly takes for the content. This is the thing that is really intuitive. I feel like even though UI deals with a large portion of conveying ideas or visions of a product, it is also of paramount importance to deal with the content and the voice while designing the face of the product. Patternfly provides clear standards, guidance to help create correct content for the website as well. It provides with detailed guides to deal with elaborate uh, what they say is the five general principle while creating the content, that is like be clear and concise, be useful, be conversational, be consistent, and right for the audience. So no, it states the words we use for the product are just as important as the components or layouts. The right words can drive better design decisions and guide users to succeed. So Patternfly content standard helps to use content design and strategy to build better experiences as well, which is a bonus point of this design system, I feel. Then, as I had promised to share the contribution links in the very beginning, so here you go with the GitHub link for all part by code bases. Feel free to dive deep into it and make of it, most out of it. I have also included the links to websites, Slack, Medium, and mailing list over here. So also feel free to get in touch with the developers of PatternFly. Now, another great thing that I find in PatternFly is they provide a training environment in Katacoda, which has courses designed for beginners, intermediate, and advanced people. So it kinds of helps uh, very well to get started with PatternFly who has no idea about design using design framework previously. They're just getting started. It's quite useful for them. Now, these are some resources that I have listed down, which I believe will be shared by Twitter and other in Meetup page later later the day. And yeah, I guess that's it from my side. Yeah, please feel free to shoot any questions you guys have.
Thanks, Anisha. Uh, so if you have any questions, you can ask now. So, Anisha, one question is, I think you mentioned we might need some more lines of code, right? Which might also increase some bundle size. So, do you have some thoughts on it? Like, I think you compared and design with this pattern fly, right? I think you mentioned this will have like more lines of code compared to and design, something like that.
Uh, Oh, sorry, there was a lag in my system. Yeah, so when I told that there are a couple more lines in the code, what I meant is, because Patternfly gives a lot of customization with its interactivity, so we are able to write our own piece of code to integrate interactivity and to modify the component as we want. So it basically depends on what are components you are using and what are components you are importing. So I don't think it's a huge issue until and unless you're using third-party libraries along with React Patternfly. But yeah, it's something that is that usually we face, and the I think the best way to deal with it is to experiment and see which library works better with the project and which library doesn't, and what happens if we customize the components, and what happens if we use just a library to implement the same functionality. So yeah, that's what I would say.
So one more question is like, can we use this with Bootstrap?
Yes, you can. Yeah, we are currently combining and design with Patternfly, and the only issue